everyone. Welcome to the Arts Educator Roundtable. This is our first one, but will not be our last. My name is Jocelyn Jeffries. I'm sure you've seen me on the general Arts Ed and J sphere. And that's enough for me. I'm going to introduce our wonderful educators. So I'm going to pass it over to Chuck.
Hello, everyone. Chuck Miller. I'm a theater teacher and director at Pineland Regional High School in Little Lake Harbor, New Jersey. I'm also an executive board member of the Speech and Theater Association of New Jersey, which is STANJ, and been teaching for about 17 plus years now. And just looking forward to having this discussion with some great colleagues, and wish everybody well.
Hi, I'm Christina Hill. I'm the Director of Arts Integration and STEAM Education at Apple Farm Arts and Music Campus. I am a visual arts teacher by trade, but I like to dabble in all the arts when I can, and I'm excited to be here with you all tonight.
And Purple, you can go next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening and peace, as I love to say. I am Shakia Purple Nars, lyrically known as Purple Haze. I am the artistic director of the Hip Hop Art and Culture program at NJPAC for the Center of Arts Education, and fortunate to work as a teaching artist still for a number of organizations, including the U.S. Ambassador Next Level program. I've been teaching hip hop for about 15 years now.
Very cool.
Hello, everyone. I am Felicia Latoya Brown. I am the Career and Technical Education General Theater Teacher at Trenton Central High School. I am the president of the Career and Technical Education Association for New Jersey, and I am the Regional Programming Director for the American Alliance for Theater and Education, heading up theater in our schools. Yes. I have been teaching for a total of 15 years now, which is amazing to say. Teaching all various age groups from 5th through 12th, and I have taught overseas as well. But I'm in Trenton now, have been for a few years, and I'm loving it.
Hello, I'm Dennis Argle. I've been a New Jersey public school music educator for 38 years, currently retired as an administrator from the Elizabeth Public Schools, but I do teach part-time for the school district of the Chathams. I work for Rutgers University, William Patterson University, and Montclair State University as a clinical intern supervisor, and I teach a couple of seminar courses at Montclair as well. I'm a board member of the New Jersey Music Education Association and New Jersey Music Administrators Association, as well as I also work for Arts Ed New Jersey as the director of the Solo and Ensemble Festival, and I'm a freelance musician and arranger-composer. Nice to be here with you all tonight.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamara Lashore Owens. I am from Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. My school district is Pleasantville, in Pleasantville, New Jersey, near Atlantic City. Chuck, yes, you shouted out Little Egg Harbor. I was like, oh my goodness, I know where that's at. So yes, I am so excited to be here. And unlike all of you, I am just an educator, a teacher that is truly an arts advocate. Love the arts and all of what you bring. I am those teachers that are like, yes, we need those artists in education residencies, how important arts education is, how the fact that we need it K through 12, and love what you do, love your talent, love your creativity. OMG, I want all of you. And Apple Farm, I'm very familiar with you. It's so good to see you. Purple and Felicia, I want to get to know you ladies. Oh yes, I definitely would love to have you down south in Shore, Jersey. So, and I didn't forget about you, Dennis. All of that music experience. Yes, and you're on every board. That board needs to come right down here to Shore, Jersey. So I thank you, Jocelyn, for this wonderful opportunity just to even have myself on to be able to grab, share, and absorb all of this information, knowledge, resources, so that this can be more empowering and impactful for Shore Jersey. I do sit on the Atlantic County Education Association as the instructional chair. I did start the Atlantic County Arts Roundtable. And because of the fact that our arts teachers feel like an island and want to get them feeling more like that community as you are doing now. So this is something to share with them. So again, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to all that this roundtable can bring and do. Thank you.
Absolutely. So with that, I can tell that some of you know each other, some of you don't, and so we're going to do an icebreaker. So Priscilla Hopkins-Smith, who we've seen on the stream before, she picked this out for us, and she said, you found a magic wand when you were walking through the idyllic fall foliage and trees out there that we have right now. And you find this magic wand, and what it can give you is you can change one thing about your work. It can be your workplace, it can be things you do, it can be anything. So whoever wants to start can start. And that's a hard one, especially for us who love our jobs.
Well, I'm gonna go first. I don't know if I would change. Am I allowed to change myself into
Yes,
this
you
wand?
can.
Okay.
Yes, you can change
Okay.
yourself.
So I would give myself a one-way ticket to the Fountain of Youth so that I could continue doing what it is I like to do without having to plan for an end to it. Because I enjoy so much what I do. I don't want to stop doing it. So that's my wand.
I think that's a very good one.
I'll go next if that's all right. Because the first thing you think about, you're like, don't say that. You're like, I want to change kids not arguing over it, but that's not it because they're children. I would say honestly, I think the biggest thing I'd like to change is scheduling. I think I'd like for educators, especially arts educators, but educators in general, just have a little more time in their day. Like I fully believe science and English teachers, with the amount of labs and writing they have to do, should only teach 4 classes because they have all that extra reading to do. And arts prep wise, 40 minutes, 45 minutes is not enough. And you're forced overtime. And not that we mind doing it, but I think you see a lot of burnout because you don't have a lot of you're with that forced overtime, you don't have any balance. And I like to see a little more balance in our educational day. Like kids are going from class to class to class to class. And I like to see just a little like pause of like, hey, we could like, stretch this out, or maybe, I don't know exactly the answer of what the scheduling would be, but I think we're all nodding going, yeah. Would it be nice to be an adult to have more than 20 minutes in a day? That'd be really nice. So I would magic wand just change how we schedule everything and give adults a little more time to prep for the kids.
I just started college, and I have no idea how anyone does 9 classes a day. Like, I think about it now, and I'm like, how did I do it? Because it doesn't seem possible for a human to do. And you guys do it all the time. And you do the harder part of having to teach the information and having it already. Like, it's amazing. But anyway, passing it on to the next person.
I'll go next because I like what Chuck said, including that magic wand to, make that schedule and have more time, and to also have arts education, all of the different arts categories in every school, K to 12. Every school. That's the magic wand. I want to see dance rooms, dance studios with the mirrors, starting in kindergarten with the ballet slippers. I would like that magic wand to make sure that boys as well as girls feel included and inclusive. The fact that we have theater and music and instruments and, art and all of that going on in every school. Students can see those classrooms. Students can see different artists on the walls, and art teachers are able to be expressive and have students in their own classrooms and elements. Forget the carts. Forget, moving around with the carts. That takes away the time. How do you fit all that on the cart? That is something to talk about. So the magic wand for everybody to have those arts classes, actual classrooms in every school.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I am the daughter of two now retired educators. And I'm really interested in state-of-the-art buildings that have school be a nurturing space like home, really the complement of home and school. And I'm into non-authoritative approaches to education. I think young people are powerful and able to lead right now. So I am curious about the school and community as a co-working space, almost always innovative and incubating, so that like here in JPAC, we say learner first approach. And that means me as the adult, I'm a learner too. And so just the exchange and that it's reflective. I know my magic wand, see, I'm just going around and around and around. But I really wanted to be reflective of the current day and what we imagine for the future and can't imagine in the future. I do think education at this point is based upon the industry and society's past, not necessarily where we're going. So out of this world, and one where in the US, we are into the global experience of education and able to participate across seas and exchange with young people now, so that just their whole life experience can happen in a school building and way beyond what we're doing now.
I love what everybody is saying. And I was thinking really like too hard at first. But I think that I have like a bunch of things, and I was trying to package them all into one like succinct idea where I could like get away with saying like one really smart thing that would encompass all the little things. But I think I lean towards, similarly to what I think Tamara just said, was that like I would love to see arts education be equal to all the subjects in school, and a little bit more, or a lot more emphasis on creativity and play, and just returning back to school being fun, and kids not feeling like they have to be forced to go. And I think that, more emphasis on the arts and creativity and less focus on testing, and just really seeing kids as partners, like Purple just said, their voices matter, and just, I don't know, I'd like to see a more equitable student teacher on the same level, facilitating learning from one another. And I would also like to clone myself. I had to stick that in there.
Of course.
So I figure it this way: if the wand worked for everyone else, then my wishes, most of them would have come true. So, because I was like, ooh, more time. Yes, have it all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade, all the way through, because there's 2 theater teachers in my whole district, and I'm the only one in high school. So yes, I'm like, all the way through. But then I started thinking, and I'm listening to everyone, and what comes to mind, one of the huge initiatives that I'm working on right now is with the Association for Career and Technical Education, and really starting to put an emphasis on arts, media, and entertainment as an industry that we can start training our students for, that there are jobs that are out there in the fields that interest these kids, but that their parents might not see it that way, because the parents might think, oh, lawyer, doctor, those are the things, and it's like, no, there are places where you can be creative and be successful. And so I would love to wave my wand over that and make every parent and administrator across the country understand that arts, media, and entertainment is something that's worthwhile, and that they should support their students wholeheartedly in their endeavors.
That last bit, when you were speaking about like what they should do, it was very calming, and it felt like I was being hypnotized into that being that being what I believe. Not that I don't believe it, but like you're hypnotizing the all the parents out there who don't believe that for their kids.
Just to be said, Felicia can convince anybody to do anything. Just so you know,
Yes.
she has that tone. It's like, why don't you come help my kids? Oh, I can't. Yes, you can. Oh, yes, I can.
Yes, you can do it. So we have a couple comments. So from Latasha, she says, "Hey there, arts educator superheroes." And then a comment in rebuttaling to that is, "Yes, Latasha, we would love to have you join next time," which is totally true. And so I thought it was really interesting that all of you, of course, you are all wonderful educators, and that's one of the reasons you guys are on here. And also, you're all very eloquent in your speaking. But I really appreciate how much you put the students first. And so, how did you guys, I guess, come to your theses? Because I can tell that each of you has your center for what you believe education should be. So does anyone want to share maybe an anecdote or a story of what showed them that this is really one of or the most important thing that, and Dents will be back, don't worry, the most important thing to do right now is to teach these students and to take care and nurture these students?
I have something that I actually must give credit for. African corrective program in Philadelphia called Dessert Club, where I first got to travel abroad with young people. And there's a motto, the Dessert Club, I hope I don't misquote it. It's easier to build a child than to repair an adult.
Mm-hmm.
That, what I can say is we've all been children. And our friends, we remember our friends if it wasn't our own narrative. And some of those memories are so vivid. And being with young people, I realized that my advocacy for youth is based upon wanting young people to enjoy their life while they're young. If we're lucky to live a long life, that's a short span. And to offer them the sponging that they are, the opportunity to absorb so much and it be so selected, so it's not so uniformed because we're so individualized. And so I think it's really important to open up the world for them, craft them, and that we all as a village are caring about each and every young person's journey and not necessarily landing on them. So in my case, it was continue to make space, ask questions, have them get louder or quieter, more creative or more playful, whichever that individual is calling for in their most authentic development and growth, is what I got from that quote.
Absolutely. I just found it because I Googled what you wrote, what you said exactly, and then it's a quote from Frederick Douglass, and it says, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," which of course we know that pretty much all quotes, except for the select few, when they say men, they mean the general humankind, not just men in the gender sense. Because everyone will have something broken about them, when it comes out of it, but to build strong characteristics and build strong children is something that it's very honorable that all of you champion, and most teachers, from what I can tell, hopefully champion.
I think sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say that I love that quote. I think it's on point. And for me, I was a teaching artist for 15 years or so, and I feel like that was one of the biggest privileges. I was in the New York City public school system, and I got to see so many teachers do so many different things, and I valued each opportunity to just absorb their knowledge and their approaches and their creativity. And then it really wasn't until I had my own child who is a bit neurodivergent, or a lot neurodivergent, and seeing just how they go through school and then thinking about how I went through school is where my thinking started to really shift in wanting to see just a big change in how schools in general do a lot of the things that they do. And I think that the idea of, I always use this example, but like disseminating information and filling kids they're an empty vessel, right? It's just such an antiquated way to think about it. And someone said it earlier, but we have so much to learn. And in the case of technology, I have like everything to learn from my students. And to engage them is so exciting. And I love the way that the arts are an access point for so many kids, because they are engaged, and it's so much easier to kind of get them engaged with the arts, and then, work the academics in. But the learning will always come. But if a kid is not engaged and they're not enjoying school, then the learning's just not going to come in school. It'll come outside of school, maybe, but I think that there's just so much. They have so much to teach us, like someone said earlier. And I love that the arts are an opportunity to really engage kids and get to know them as humans and value their opinions and their voices and their talents. And I don't know if that was an answer to a question, but it was when I started.
No, we don't also have to answer all the questions. If you have a thought, please share it. I thought it was really interesting that you talked about the empty vessel metaphor, I guess it would be, because people forget that human children, are just little adults. They're just little people, and so they're having all the same emotions that adults have. They're just having them in maybe a different way, or they can't explain them in the same way because they literally don't have the words yet, or whatever it may be. And so that was an interesting thing for you to note, was that they're little people, and the empty vessel isn't really true, because they're not empty. They're full of so much. And our job as educators is to experience and look into what they're doing, and help them encourage the good of what they're doing. And that's what you seem to do that's what arts is doing with redefining education. And I thought it was interesting that there's a lot of learning through that education and through that arts. So absolutely. Does anyone have any more comments about that question? And then we can move on to our next one.
Yeah, I do. Was the question, just to clarify a little bit, was the question as how did we arrive to the answer we came to in that question? Premise originally?
The question was really like, everyone here has a clear thesis, whatever it may be, on their education beliefs. Right. And I wanted to know how that happened, basically, and what you settled on.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I want to make sure I was on the right track, because I could go off for
absolutely. This is a very broad question.
I'll tell you, I can. For myself, I know. So for me, I'm finding that not my thesis, but I don't want to say changes, but I'd say clarifies more and more and more every couple of years. Like it adapts along with the knowledge and experience, and you really learn what's important, what's not. And actually, for me, I know that theater was so important as a growth aspect. That's why when I got my master's in theater education, I wanted to be in the education aspect, because it was the teaching of it and the experience of doing it that was more important than the production. Like one of those process product thing. If the process comes out right, the product will be fine. And is the product all that important compared to the process? And I'm a process guy. I like the process. I'm happy with the products, but I prefer watching the growth, because it helped me a lot. So my philosophy started with, I just wanted to give students the same type of experience that I had. And then I tried to boil down, well, what were those experiences? And it was, working super hard on things to get the value out of that hard work. But at the same time, you're building those bonds, you're doing all that learning. And through the learning, we're bonding. And then as we're bonding, we're learning. And it just kept going back and forth between creating these bonds and then improving ourselves. Because if we just bond and nothing changes, then we're just stagnant, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to keep moving forward, right? And I found that through that, and even bringing it to the first question, I said scheduling, is because I know when I am overloaded, I'm not being effective for them, and that's the hard part, is that you want to be, because you want to give them not give them the experience, but give them the environment in which for them to have the experiences, that if you're exhausted and you're tired and you're stressed out, it's going to flow down to them, and the hard part is balancing those things. So I found that for me, the way I came in that thesis was, as I get older and older, it used to be when you're a young teacher, and I'm going to tangent for a second. When you're a young teacher, it's always about like this. We're going to do excellent. We're going to do, we're going to do great work, and that's what you want to do. But as you get older, you have to say to yourself, okay, like what's my standard for that great work? Because here's a kid who probably like never been on stage before, and the fact that they're even up there is a huge success. So isn't there room for everybody in this program? And instead of being like, well, who are we cutting? It's like, well, why do we have to? Do we have to cut people? And I'm more like either theater's for everyone or it isn't. And we're a public school, right? So it's one thing when you're going to like U Michigan for 20 people and they have to make their selection, but that's not now. That's not New Jersey education. We're here for everybody. So I found myself going, pick a bigger show. Even though it's stressful for me, let's get more people involved because either theater education works or it doesn't. And I think it does. So that's how I came to that. And then when you see the benefits, you see the students and the fact that you're still in touch with them, or the fact that you go through the years and people talk about the wonderful memories they had and how much it meant to them. So that, we're so lucky because we get to see them. Can you imagine being a teacher of like English, something like that, and you have to wait for a standardized test to see if they did well on one day, when we get constant like check-ins all the time to see how they're doing? Like, we're so spoiled in that sense. Anyway, I like this. This is what I do. I love this stuff. That's what you do. You want to see them get it. I'm going to stop. Okay. That's how I came to it. What were the I think arts should be pass-fail. I'm tired of this grading system. That's my magic wand. Pass-fail.
and since he stopped, I'm going to begin. I would love the fact that arts be, when we're talking about this, that it is available to everybody. I remember growing up and I didn't, my community and in my school district, there wasn't arts education. Music wasn't available till about 7th, 8th grade. I love dancing. I remember when Janet Jackson's Pleasure Principle came on MTV. It was like the first, behind Michael Jackson or whatever, one of the first Black videos, right? Coming out and being glued to seeing modern dance for the first time. Experiencing that and really growing up in an area with not an art center, and that type of thing. And today, that still exists. That still happens. That's still, within our communities. That's a problem. So, looking from when I grew up at that time span, seeing change for the better, seeing that progress that's needed, seeing the light in students' eyes and experiencing, for the first time that art form that they love, whether it's, the art, the theater, the dance, the drama, whatever it is, the media, the technology, whatever it is, the creative part that really brings them out. And most importantly, how arts education ties into our standards, just classroom standards, for example, poetry and writing. And, when we're looking at the elements and integrating through English and language arts and, our sciences and all of that, this is where arts has a truly impactful way in regards to that, how students perform, how it actually brings them to write better, to encourage them to write better, to understand poetry and comprehension and reading stories, to want to be an author or what have you, and to be brave, be bold, be passionate about something, not afraid to fail at something, get up and try again, a socialization. It's so many skills that are combined with, the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards across the board that also needs to be, just brought in more. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because I can go on. So I'm now going to pause. Thank you.
Welcome back, Dennis. I wanted to mention the question that we were talking about was where we got our theses from. So what made us want to do what we do, essentially, is what we're talking about now, and everything which surrounds that. And I thought it was interesting, Chuck, that you mentioned that right now is not the time to cut people. And I think that is a really great, well, for those who don't have context, that would be a very strange statement. But with context, it makes sense. He'll be back. But he's back.
I was gonna share where I come from with this.
Absolutely.
So I got the idea of jumping into this crazy pool of being an artistic teacher when I was young. Was really wanted to be a computer chemist and left alone in my own little lab because I am an introvert by nature, forced to be an extrovert because of my passions. And so the school that I had been attending had an amazing principal and founder who was highly artistic. And she would gather the whole school together, preschool through 12th grade, and put on these big productions. But when I was in middle school, she passed away. And all of that went with her. And so I had this drive to come back and restart it. It took a while, but it did get started again. And Chuck went and visited that school, helped us out on a project there. And then now I'm at Trenton, a totally different school. But in the whole process, some of the things that really keep me going, and I say these two things to my students. Each person is walking around with a wound. And so we need to handle each other carefully. And we can do that in the arts in the way that we can't in any other class. You don't normally stop in a math class to process pain or trauma, but you can do that in the arts. You can find ways to creatively express what's going on inside when you don't have the words. You can find ways to express it. And sometimes the words come out in a way that is not how you see in an essay. It might come out in some poetic fashion, like we see with hip hop. It could come out in all sorts of ways. But that's one of the things that I make sure we deal with. And as we started this past school year, I specifically spent time, let's talk about trauma first before we even go into things. Let's talk about processing what you have been going through, because we can do it in the theater class. The other thing is I tell them that theater is in everything and everything is in theater. And so no matter how you look at it, the art form that I teach, and I will say this, really about the arts as a whole, is so infiltrated in everything. People don't even realize how much we are surrounded by the arts. It really kind of became evident during this pandemic when everyone was starting to search for something artistic, something creative. And so that's what keeps me going, because I'm always finding something new myself and going, ooh, look, here's another way that we connect. And sometimes my students are the one to go, hey, Ms. Brown, I was thinking this, and it totally blows my mind. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's look at that. Let's try that out. Let's figure this out. And so it's a fascinating journey of continual learning for myself. As I learn and grow with my students. And I think that's been the most exciting aspect, because I've taught a lot of subjects. I taught at a private school. So at one point I was teaching like 6-7 subjects a year. And I will tell you, my growth in just teaching theater alone has been amazing because of the in-depth nature that we can get into dealing with what's going on inside, and then how to create in new ways.
Absolutely.
I just want to comment on something you said, Felicia. When I said to you about like waving my magic wand, you said it differently and better in that, like, well, it clicked more for me in that, like, imagine if we did process our feelings in math class, right? Like, imagine if we did listen to everybody's voice in ELA classes. Like, I think that's what I was getting at. It's like, without those connections, without that true community and that true listening and true understanding, what are kids even learning in those classes? And I think that's why, the arts can provide that and are an access point in that way. And I just loved how you said that in theater, you take the time to process feelings, and that's what made it click for me. It's like, yes, that's what we should be doing in every classroom, because otherwise you just have a bunch of kids who they're not going to all connect. Some will, but not all of them. So thank you for that vision.
That reminds me of the SEL standards, which is what we're pushing, especially as Arts Ed and J, but also a lot of arts educators, a lot of history educators, a lot of English educators, and school districts in general are pushing it right now post-pandemic. And so that's something that we can definitely talk about. For those who may not know, we're pretty deep into understanding what SEL is. You can look more onto our website, artsatnj.org. We have tons of content on there about it, but it's social emotional learning. So if anyone wants to give an explanation, they'll probably be better than mine, because you guys are in it right now.
Well, before my hamster wheel stops in my modem, let me get a couple of seconds in here. Up in Sussex County, the internet's not very kind to me. So a couple of presentations this week I gave on the social emotional learning standards as they relate to the visual performing arts standards, which were newly updated, right? And Arts Ed New Jersey and the team has done an amazing job providing that crosswalk for us. If you go to selarts.org or you go to njstandards.org, NewJerseyStandards.org, you'll see this crosswalk where you can very easily, all the visual performing arts teachers and media arts teachers in New Jersey can look very easily at the standards with which we teach and do a cross section about what social emotional learning standards they address for our students, and vice versa. Felicia mentioned addressing trauma. We can go there first and move backwards across the standards to see, okay, what areas can I address as an educator? Is it connecting? Is it responding? Is it creating? Do we put everything down and just let the kids create? How do we let them get in touch with themselves to get past the trauma, to understand that I too am traumatized, and we can work together to get past the trauma? So those are the kinds of conversations I find interesting. The really great math teachers and language arts teachers and science teachers do it. There's a great scene in Stand and Deliver. Edward James Olmos plays this calculus teacher in Southern California, and he's going through these calculus drills with these urban students who everybody's saying will never learn calculus, will never do well. And he's going, a negative times a negative is a positive. A negative is a negative times a positive. And they just say it over and over, and he stops them and he says, why? And their minds are blown. Like, I never really thought to ask why. And this is what we do in the theater arts and in visual arts and performing arts. We go, what if? Why? This is this. Suppose we use it in another way. Whoa, imagine if we did that across the board, right? And I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm growing weary, and this is why I want the Fountain of Youth, of fighting the fight. 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act, it's legislated. We are a core subject. The Obama administration made it so. What is taking so long for it to be so everywhere? We have to stand up. We got to get the parents to stand up and say, our kids deserve the same right to study calculus as they do to study playwriting, as they do to study poetry and dance and theater and visual arts. And we deserve that right. We had reached a great milestone in October of 2019. Our Governor Murphy was in the Paramus school system celebrating that all the school districts in the state got access to music in every school. That's great. Great first step. They're supposed to have access to every art form in every school. 21 counties, 600 plus districts, every kid, not their zip code, not their area code, every single kid, every single school. When are we going to get there? Parents, it's up to you. They're tired of hearing from us. Go to your board meetings. Make it happen, please. Your kids deserve it. I bet you every administrator has their kids in piano lessons and in dance lessons and writing theater. Why is it not good enough for the kids in their district? Make it happen now.
Woo!
Amen, Dennis. Amen.
Paid for by your friends at Dennis for Arts Commissioner of New Jersey.
Now they're going to cut my internet for sure and say, shut this guy up. Never have him back.
No, Dennis, that's how you do it right there. Listen, man, that's what we're talking about. And hip hop is the Public Enemy said it, fight the power. And when we say fight, it's not necessarily a physical fight, right? Breakdancing took care of that. So we're a nonviolent movement, right? What we're talking about is moving ourselves and physically, but emotionally and provocatively to have the audacity to teach yourself creating, right? The foundation of hip hop is using indigenous practices, but it's a self-taught practice. And so what I'm fortunate to see is that it's an access point into many of the arts, into an exploration, into a repurposing idea, repurposing material, repurposing your world. One of the things we see specifically in the SEL world, because knowledge of self is the number one thing we're practicing in hip hop, we're using art forms like dance, graffiti, beatboxing, music production, DJing, and lyric writing. Those are really the vehicles to say what I've learned, what I'm curious about, and get it out there. And because there's an element of self-taught and not traditional, it has people be in themselves and be with others and in community. So I am a component and support of cultural race theory and cultural responsive education because I see that many arts and art forms, we have so much space to also learn about culture and other people. And that social awareness and social emotional learning is super important, but it also includes the individual, right? The self-awareness and social awareness. Because if I'm aware of the outside world, but I don't know who I am and I'm not choosing a place in it or curious of place or failing forward and moving the crowd or moving other human beings, then I'm disconnected maybe. So I love that part about SEL, that it's both the individual as well as the social awareness piece. And we hear a lot about young people developing confidence, and confidence is something we use everywhere, right? That's not any particular place. Again, as Felicia's saying, the arts, and everybody's saying here, is the arts is a catalyst for our being extraordinary everywhere and being with each other and being with other human beings, right? And I love Tony Baskerville Richardson, a great educator from Newark, New Jersey, said, what would it look like for everybody to do what they love and do what they're good at? Right? So I'm still using my magic wand for that world. But I am fortunate in our program here at NJPAC. Most of our young people have no interest in being career entertainers, but they're grateful to be exposed to be in power of moving objects and doing things in different ways, and how they elevate themselves. They are the class presidents, they are the honor roll students, and they're really the creatives and the unusuals in their building that just still haven't found their footing, right? And do they need to? They're young, they're exploring, they're figuring it out now. So it's pretty exciting that, and maybe when I'm saying exciting, I don't think is new for a lot of people that's on this call, but social emotional learning is the way we believe, I believe learning really does alter society.
Purple, you got me thinking. There's this book that I share with my students, Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind. And it's all about how using the creative side of us, how it can impact everything, whether or not you choose to do something artistically with your future. Having an innovative mindset can impact any field you go into. I actually was talking to my sister the other day, and I told her that I want to start collecting like little clips of people I know who have, like, they study something artistically, but they're in a totally different field. So like my sister is a family physician, but she took theater classes, and she's like, do you understand how much I rely on what I was taught to be a doctor. And I'm like, those are the videos I want young people to hear and parents to hear, because it's like, so often we don't realize, well, we realize, but there are people out there who don't realize that the skills that they're learning, things like the social emotional learning has always been woven into what we teach. Culturally responsive teaching, it should have been. Now, I don't know if everybody did it, but it should have been, and it could have naturally be woven into the way we teach. I look at it and I'm like, how do you even understand other cultures? One of the first things we do is we look at what they've produced artistically. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how we understand other cultures. You look at the artifacts, and what are the things they're pulling out? They're pulling out the paintings, they're pulling out the sculptures, they're pulling out the old scripts, the old plays, the old poems. They're pulling out art and going, let's decipher this and figure out about this culture. So it's just... okay, sorry. I'm just loving what everyone is saying, and I'm so excited about it all, and pumped up. I did this whole paper looking at Slovak theater and understanding Slovak culture because of their theater, and right now it's their theater festival online right now, and I've been on this huge and sharing with my students the same thing. This is how you can begin to understand other people. Looking through the arts, and you might not understand the language, but you can understand what they've produced.
Felicia, I got to shout out Arts at NJ. I believe it was 3 years ago at the Governor's Award. The opening clip showed different career paths or different individuals who were successful or amazing leaders across industries and what arts they studied. So I know that archive is somewhere.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can find it. I'll write that down right now.
Thank you, because I want that.
Yes.
I want that. I think that's something that needs to be shown on a regular basis and added to. You know, every few years, add a few more people to that. Just saying. I'll start it out there.
When I started my advocacy journey as a student, I remember going, okay, cool. So how are we going to sell arts? And then one of the things which people would always say is it helps in other careers. And then some people would actually add information to that, and some people would just leave it. But I think having the first person knowledge of it and saying hey, I did theater, and I, didn't really enjoy the part of having to do that expression, but I learned that I can speak and I can be this type of person, and now I'm a lawyer, or now I'm a doctor, or now I'm a teacher. And you learn that even if that sort of expression didn't click with you, you learn that you can do it. You learn that it's something that works for any person, and any person can be that sort of communicative individual. So that's a very valuable thing.
Yeah, I had a student once, I was teaching an introduction to the arts and creative thinking course at the other school. And I had a student who wanted to go to college to become a neurosurgeon. And she took my course, and I gave them the project of saying, okay, now that you have learned about creative thinking and thinking about the arts, looking at the arts, look at what you want to do in your future. And how can you weave the two together? And this student came in for her project, and she said, I looked at the architecture in Japan. And I was like, what? She's like, yes. And I noticed how when they have an earthquake, the buildings can literally move like this, but then it'll be completely straight again. And she's like, and I started thinking about people who have back problems and how we put just the rods in, and then they're not as flexible. So why can't we look at the structure that they do in Japan for architecture and start thinking about that when we're dealing with the spine? And I was like, ooh, All right, girl. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That is like,
You have that kid's number from my back?
I think she just graduated from college this past May. So I'm gonna see what her next step is, because she was thinking like that when she graduated from high school. So I'm excited to see what is her next step.
Absolutely.
I want to just piggyback on that because you're all so 100% right. And I remember certain back to school nights trying to explain things to parents of why we're teaching arts in schools, because they're worried about college and test scores and AP testing. And I was like, okay, I can show you statistics all day long about being involved in the arts is going to increase your scores and all that stuff. And I said, but it's almost like that. What good is to gain the whole world if you lose your soul? And it was one of these, like, you're missing the growth of the child for a temporary academic, right? And I remember saying, Google's not hiring computer technicians. Everyone at Google can works on a computer. They're hiring creative people who also work on computers. Everyone is looking for, we forget that creativity is a commodity. And that idea, and you only get through creativity through that emotional learning, which is what the arts does. You can't be creative without having that emotional learning and learning to work with others. And like we said in Beyond the Boundaries, it was the idea that you start with nothing and you make everything. You're starting with, like with Purple's case, there's just a beat, a simple beat. And then there's a song that follows that beat that you started with. It's an idea in the shower. It's something you heard while you were sitting in traffic. It's this little thing, which then blossoms into this gigantic song that moves someone else, right? And all that we do and everything we do is forgetting that forget the idea that it has to produce the exact result. It's the creativity is the result. And we can do that and teach those skills. And those skills are going to translate into everything you do until you look at your SAT and go, okay, wait a second. But if they're asking the question this way, then they ask the question this way. Because we're so trained to think creatively. And it's one thing that I think we undersell. Because we so get it, but for people that don't get it, we struggle explaining it, I think, a little bit more. And if we're going to do that magic wand thing again, maybe we'll just say, hey, I'm going to ask for all the parents of every school child to understand what I understand, and let them go that way. And that would be awesome. But I agree with you guys 100%. That creativity through that emotional learning is exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And like I said, we've all seen the benefits. We've seen it. And that's why we do what we do. Because it's addicting.
And to add to that, I think too, it's like those things, and then it's the room. Like it's giving them the room and the time to get lost in the process, which I think is something a lot of classes don't give. But I do think that room and that time to really just get lost in something and fail and trial and error and keep pushing and experiment and move things around. And so I think you take that idea in the shower and then you figure it out, right? And I think that's another thing that the arts provide is just the room to, it's a low stakes game, it's just playing and engaging and getting lost, which is nice.
The arts need the room, as Christina is saying, and I like that. I like how you brought that in, the room. Arts need the room during professional development when we all come back to school. And teachers are given professional development. That room for arts, as I am here, absorbing and speaking and hearing from arts community, arts educators, those that are in the arts and doing. That is professional development. That is what teachers need to hear and process, because when it's part of professional development, it's made and is a priority. Right? It's given that time, that whole hour and a half. You have all grade levels. You have everyone's attention to put together the creative presentation, to be able to ask and answer questions, to be able to engage the educator in what they do, so that is something that they can also bring to the classroom. So when we have that, we also have the opportunities where art needs the room in our parent meetings, when we have in PTO meetings. There needs to be a room for art education. It is not a priority when it's not talked about. It's not a priority when it's not advocated for in those parent resource rooms, when we're there, talking and engaging, when we're looking at those extra remedial activities, or they can get on, this or that. There's certain things that students need to be able to refocus and redirect. We're talking about that social emotional learning. We're bringing those things in, but there has to be room for arts education in those other areas. So teachers, classroom teachers, from middle to high school, have that opportunity to sit and listen and be engaged and understand arts education from it. And with it being presented that way, it is put into the category of being what? A major component, just like, language arts, science, math, and everything else, just like it is, but it's never given that opportunity. So again, with our parents, it needs to be engaged with that, with our parent groups, so that this way, when our parents are educated and informed on the standards, on the services that are being offered, now that is when they can go and ask those questions, but they don't know because there is not room and an opportunity for that to be addressed. So that may be something that we can also look at and focus on to bring arts as we know it's essential. Yes, it's written there, but now it's time to, as Dennis said, really bring it, right? It's time for it to be and galvanized to that level.
Absolutely. So as we're reaching the hour-ish mark, I want to ask the last kind of closing question, which is, what advice would you give new educators? So this could be new teachers. This could be people who have been doing their art for a long time, but are finally now going, oh, but I need to teach people about it. Whatever sort of educator comes to mind, what would be some advice you would give them?
So I'm going to jump in first. A conversation with a clinical intern this afternoon about it. He's having some thoughts, and I just asked them to close their eyes and think about one or two teachers that turned on it, found that spark, fire, and lit it. And thousands of kids are waiting for a person to do it for them. Still have memory for Mrs. Fritz, whoever that's that, boom, hit that. And you guys, I want to be a teaching artist. I want to share this with other people. I will never, unless you or shit. So keep that in your and every day, and whatever, because you're gonna have things tough people. Keep that fire and go at it.
Dennis, you're cutting out a little bit. Wait. We got the first part, but then you cut out a little bit.
Keep the fire lit and go at it every day for those thousands of kids.
I think to piggyback off of, to keeping the fire lit, I think I always encourage teachers to bring what they're excited about into the classroom. And, by doing that, you model a sense of wonder, and excitement about being in school. And then just to also always come from a place of inquiry to, ask a lot of questions and engage in that way. Those are always my two favorite pieces of advice. I think that gets lost sometimes.
I say co-create, share space and responsibilities, create community agreements, and have young people who don't usually do certain things really see and hear each student, so that they each can stand up and lead and participate with you. And so just learn with the students and teach with them as well.
I would say keep some sort of journal, file, or notebook that has things that people said to you that encouraged you, things that are those awesome moments that you had in class, whether you were a student or you saw it with your own students, because there are going to be times that hit and it's hard and you will go, why the heck am I doing this? And you need something to remind you to go, that's why. That's why. So I those little things, whether it be a little note that a kid wrote you, hold on to that, put that somewhere so that when those tough times come, you go, you know what? Just like there was this kid, there's another one I'm dealing with that I don't know which one in this class this is going to hit, but they're needing this right now, you know? And then I would say, keep growing yourself. My mantra for this whole pandemic has been incubate, do not hibernate. And that has been my thing. You should constantly be striving to be better than you used to be. Don't stop growing. No matter how hard it might get, don't stop striving to be a better you. Not a better someone else, a better you.
That reminded me of something I think Purple said, where it was that it was, I think all of you have probably touched on it, but when you were teaching your students and you were like, but I was learning too. And that's what it reminded me of, is that it's a group learning experience, which I've seen some teachers forget, but I've seen some teachers just fully embody, and it just makes it so much more fun to be in that classroom when we're on that level of we're both learning together, and this is a human experience. Absolutely. Well,
Am I back on? I'm so sorry, everybody.
You sound great.
Okay, I had to go to. I don't know, my Wi-Fi messed up. I had to go to my phone. I didn't know. Everybody finished? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, you didn't interrupt. Do you have an answer to the question?
I do. I actually wanted to join in on that one. I missed a lot of what you guys said, but I'm sure it's completely inspirational, because when I listen to all of you, I want to just jump into your classes and do all the stuff you guys are doing. It's awesome. But I would give the advice that was given to me. You teach for free because you love it and you care. You get paid to take attendance. That's why you get your paycheck. You're paid to do that stuff. It's a pain in the butt, you get it, but you have to care, and that's why you do what you do. And as long as you're, and then I would say the second part would be, if you are student-centered, you'll always be fine. Like you have to put them first above everything else, not what you need, not a job, because if it's not about you teaching them first, then what you're doing doesn't matter. So focus on the kids, do it because you love it, but the paycheck's because you're taking attendance, and keep that in mind. Make sure you understand what you're getting into. And once you can accept that, you're gonna have a great career.
So I think the only one who didn't provide advice is Tamara, right? Or did I miss it?
No, you did not. I must say, I didn't just want to take away from, I'm just inspired today. So what I would just add is, just as we talking about being student-centered, I agree with what everything was said here, and listening, having that ear to listen to our students. And that was all that I was going to add, because everyone has said it so eloquently.
Absolutely. This has been quite an interesting and inspiring roundtable, and I thank you all for being here. We have a comment from, my guess is Priscilla, on the Arts Ed Facebook. It is, I'm interested in knowing what our educators are looking forward to this year. I think that's a great way to close out our stream, because there's a lot of stuff which has happened in the past 2 years now, which has been really stressful and difficult, especially for educators and students. and a lot of people. And so what is something that we're looking forward to?
I will go first. I will say that Leeds Avenue School is looking forward to the ballet program starting back up at Cygnus Creative Arts in Egg Harbor Township. So we are hopeful. The students are asking, and we're talking elementary. Yay! So, the returning students, they're like, they haven't been, prior to COVID, in March of, that year. And we're excited. So here we are a year and a half later, and they are saying, Miss Owens, we are ready to do it. And we're ready to go. So yes, we are excited about ballet.
Listen, I'm excited because people have been inside, and so much inside is ready to come out. And so hip hop was created when New York City was under economic distress and Bronx was buried in all the wildness. And if that came out of that, I literally don't think I can imagine. So I'm just looking forward to seeing, how this comes together and it gets expressed.
Absolutely to that.
I'm looking forward to reaching out to Priscilla to get directions to that forest so I can go look for some wands for the 6 of us. Get out there and just start hitting all these schools and administrators and start changing stuff.
Yes. I'm looking forward to this year, my senior class, which they were sophomores when the pandemic hit, they have started their own theater company within the class. So they have their first season that they have planned. They have their mission statement. It's all about to be launched with the 3 shows that they will be working on. They're all smaller shows, but I'm excited about it. We started working on one of them that deals with cyberbullying. And there are 7 kids who are so pumped up and excited and ready to just take this on. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these students do.
Yeah. Similarly, I'm already loving just getting to be around kids and getting to watch them, popping into classes and seeing them getting messy and making art, and that feels wonderful. And I'm usually a process person. I love the process, but I'm actually really looking forward to some art shows and some performances. Be it live streamed if we have to without an audience or whatever it ends up being, but just to be together again and sharing art in that way feels really exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everyone. I think it's what I'm looking forward to is what has already just happened, is just being with the kids again in person and them more or less being together. It's so different now that we're mostly back. Yes, there's their problems with it, but you can just feel the difference. You can see the difference, and you can see hope again. And that's really important. So I'm just looking forward to every day, just doing something new, teaching something new, and having them be there and sharing it. That's really the best part of it. So.
Going back to the community that we had lost. Oh, so Tamara, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to know when Dennis is getting the mobile van together, we're going to, around the state to start advocating. So I just want to say, Dennis, let me know. I'm ready to go. Okay. You just let me know.
It. Well, yeah, we got it.
School districts.
She has
Absolutely.
her bags packed and she's ready to go.
Ready to go.
Absolutely.
Throughout all 21 counties. Yes.
That's right. That's a deal.
Okay.
So with that, I thank every wonderful educator who is on tonight. And I look forward to seeing all of these different all these different things, and we'll be sure to promote them through our Arts in Bloom campaign and on our Instagram and everything. And I want to promote our Scholastic Indoor Performance Guidance that was just released. You can see that on our Instagram. You can see the jot form, which is in our bio, and you can send in student performances and student creations, because that's what we're really doing here. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that inspiration through the students. And then also we mentioned the Beyond the Boundaries documentary that was produced, and that is on our Instagram. Not our Instagram. I don't think it's on our Instagram. It's like shown on our Instagram, and it's like excited on our Instagram, but it's not on our Instagram. It's on our Facebook and it's on our YouTube. You can see a lot of stuff about that. A lot of our lovely educators here were part of that. And then look forward to our next Arts Educator Roundtable, and you can review some of the other stuff that's on all of our media, on our YouTube, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter also has a bunch of stuff on it, and then also especially the websites that were shown that Dennis discussed. Definitely check those out about SEL, SEL Arts, and Arts Ed SEL, and all of those. Check them out. I'm sure many of the links are on our website, artsednj.org. So thank you again to everyone. And if you have any comments before we head out, please say them. Okay. Well, thank you again, and have a wonderful night. And I hope everyone has a very safe and comfortable last day and then weekend.
Take care. Stay positive. Test negative.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I like that.
Do what
Bye,
Dennis says.
everyone.